In today's day, I'm not talking about all time, but in today's day, in the current environment, in the current climate, is it even worth it to be a politician? Is that the best? We talk about civil servants. Is being a politician the best way to be a civil servant in today's day? What do you think?
I would say in America,
In America,
in
yeah.
today's date, I don't think so. I don't think so. Just because, like, if you want to make America better, a lot of times as an individual, the best way to do it is as an individual, right? Like, volunteer, serve in your own community, help your neighbor, be a good person. If you're an older person, mentor. If you're a younger person, be respectful. Try to be a positive influence around you. Like, those things at a micro level can affect a lot of people at a macro level, you know? And then, like, if you become somebody who is a little more on the more fortunate side in terms of the wealth, you can use that to influence a lot of people. And I think in some ways, like, directly influence people a lot better than if you were a politician. Like, a lot of people think of a lot of the big name politicians when they're thinking about politicians, but there's, like, I believe it's there's well over 400 congressmen. I think it might even be like 500 or something like
No, I
that.
think it's like you can look it up. It's like something between 450 and 500.
Yeah,
I know
something
that.
like that.
It's like
But
460 or
You want
470.
me to look up?
How many?
how many people are in Congress? Because that's House and Senate.
Well, yeah. Well, then it's over the 500
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
what I
like
said.
Senate is 100 and House is like 470,
Total of 535.
530.
35.
So
In the House or in both?
both.
In both.
In both.
Yeah,
So
so-
that means there's 435
No,
House.
Senate. Yeah. So there's 535 total Congress members, and I couldn't name probably more than 20, more than 30.
Yeah.
And if you think of it at that level, it means that there's a bunch of nameless people out there who run the country, and you probably know somebody in your community who makes a big impact on your life. So I think if you want to make a bigger impact on the world, in a positive way specifically, being a politician is not the way to go, because if you're a politician, if you're really going to make an impact, you have to make waves. And sometimes making those waves aren't in the best way, because you're doing something either controversial and kind of makes people give you attention, or you've been there so long that people just keep hearing your name pop up over time, and you're becoming older people. You've been in there 60 years not getting anything done. You've been in there 6 years complaining, or 60 years complaining, and you're just an old head in Congress. And, you may not have ever passed anything that has changed the country for good. But if you had spent that 60 years in your community, getting involved, trying to make it a better place, one could argue that would have been a better, that would have been time better spent in your community doing something good for those around you, rather than part of Congress and not really being a part of anything. The only thing you really ever did was vote one way or another. Not that I'm mitigating that, but if you're voting for a bunch of stuff, but none of it ever gets passed, or you're just spending all your time doing things that really don't make a huge impact, you could have spent that time in your community, even with your own family. A lot of the biggest influence you can have is with your family, helping your family become better people, whether it's your brother, your sister, your wife, your kids. All of that, I think, could be better served.
I agree. And I think the question is, if you could be a politician, why couldn't you impact your family and your local community and those things? And I think that that's where the theory behind what the position of being a politician is, like, it in theory would be the most possible influence you can have. If you can do all these things, you can influence your family, you can influence your local community, and you're on a national stage doing what's best to represent your local community, that is how you have impact the most people. But I completely agree with you in the sense that looking at it from the lens of today's society, like, there is this establishment that everyone talks about, but no one really wants to even, like, look at and saying, like, what is the establishment? And the establishment is this overwhelming trend to move certain directions that may be contrary to what people actually want. And I think that that's where you lose value as being a politician now, because even if you did go in and you influence your family, you influence your local community, and you're like, I want to influence the nation based on representing my people, you now have to go up, and if what is best for your people doesn't align with what this establishment, quote unquote, is doing, then you don't have as much actual possibility to make change. You'd have to beat the establishment. And it's like, how do you do that in today's day? We know there's an establishment. Everyone talks about the establishment. We don't really have a great definition of what it is, but politicians either get in line or they're seen as troublemakers against the establishment, and the establishment kicks them out. So what can politicians, you either make it a career path, and you're like, hey, I'm going to join the establishment, and then I can ride this for a number of years, like all of these senators and Congress people that we see, and they're like, hey, I'll join the establishment, I'll profit off being a politician, and I'll do what the establishment says. Or you try to do what's actually best for your candidate or your constituents, and you go against the establishment, and they kick you out anyway. So I don't really know how a true, honest politician in today's day can be successful. It's either fall in line or we're going to get you out of here. So I don't think being a politician actually is a useful use of your time. Not because it's not a good ideological thing, but because you're up against literally something that, how do you beat the establishment? Whatever that thing is, how do you beat it? And what is it?